Okay, let's dive in. Here's something really interesting happening with India.
Mm-hmm.
It just became the world's most populous country, right?
Yeah.
Big headlines.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge milestone.
But here's the twist. The average number of children a woman is having has actually dropped below 2. It's down to 1.9 now.
Wow, 1.9.
Yeah. Think about that. For a country we always associated with massive population growth, that's actually below the replacement level.
Right. The level needed just to keep the population stable long term is about 2.1.
Exactly. So it feels less like a slow change and more like a sudden, well, plot twist in India's whole growth story.
It absolutely reframes the narrative, doesn't it? For decades, the conversation was all about managing this explosive growth, the numbers, the resources.
Right, how to cope?
Exactly. And now, when you really dig into the data, you see this huge deliberate shift. Falling below 2.1 isn't just a statistic, it's a major demographic event.
So it shows that all those efforts over the years actually worked.
Yeah, it suggests long-term family planning policies had an impact, definitely, plus broader societal changes. But while there are some, immediate plus points,
Which we should get into.
for sure, it also brings a whole new set of challenges, really complex ones that we're only just starting to grapple with.
That's like you spend years preparing for a flood, and then suddenly the bigger issue is managing a drought. Different problems need different tools.
That's a great analogy.
So that's our mission for this deep dive,
Yeah.
really, to unpack all the layers. Why did this happen relatively quickly? What are those upsides? And critically, what does this mean for India's future? Economically, socially,
Yeah.
the whole fabric of the nation.
Precisely. It's a picture with both bright spots and some pretty deep shadows. You see that 1.9 figure, and yeah, you can see a success story there.
Sure.
But understanding the knock-on effects over the next, say, 20, 30, 40 years, that's where the real story is. It forces a hard look at everything from education to elder care.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. How did India get to 1.9? Because wasn't that long ago the numbers were much higher. This feels like the result of decades of effort, right?
Oh, absolutely. This wasn't an accident. It's the result of deliberate policy and social change going way back. Even to the 1950s, you had those famous family planning campaigns.
The hum do, hamar do slogan.
Exactly. We too, ours too. Those became household phrases. They weren't just posters. They were part of a national conversation trying to shift norms towards smaller families.
I remember seeing those everywhere.
Yeah.
Very visible campaigns.
Incredibly pervasive, and they laid the groundwork. But what really cemented the shift were these other huge societal changes happening alongside. Think about education levels rising,
Especially for women.
particularly for girls and women, yes. When women get more schooling, have more opportunities, they generally tend to marry a bit later, have fewer children. It's a pattern we see worldwide.
And more women working too, presumably.
Coupled right with that, yeah, more women entering the workforce, building careers, delaying marriage, having personal goals alongside family ones. These are really powerful factors influencing family size.
And I guess just practically speaking, better access to contraception.
Massively important. Wider availability, better information, less stigma. It gives couples much more actual control over when and if they have kids.
Makes sense.
But you also can't ignore the practical side of modern Indian life.
Right.
Urbanization has been rapid.
Right. Cities are crowded.
Very crowded and expensive. Living space is at a premium. Trying to raise, say, 3 or 4 kids in a tiny apartment in Mumbai.
The classic Mumbai shoebox apartment.
Exactly. It's incredibly tough. The logistics, the cost. It just makes people think very carefully.
And the cost of raising kids anywhere today.
Mm.
It's not just food and clothes anymore, is it?
Oh, it's gone way up. You have the basics, sure, but then there are school fees, sometimes huge ones, then pressure for extra coaching, maybe coding camps because everyone thinks that's the future.
Right, keeping up.
All the extracurriculars. The investment, both financial and just time, per child is immense now. So many modern parents are strategically focusing on giving 1 or maybe 2 children the absolute best opportunities, which often means smaller families.
Okay, so the immediate positive then is that this lower fertility rate might ease some of that pressure on resources. Things like food, water.
Absolutely. That's the clear upside. Fewer new mouths to feed, less demand on water, energy, potentially less crowding in schools, hospitals down the line.
Maybe even a chance of finding a seat on the Delhi Metro.
Haha, well, maybe. That's the dream, right? Or
Yes.
getting a train ticket during Diwali without feeling like you've won a lottery. These are tangible, quality of life things that slower population growth can potentially help with.
So definitely some wins in slowing things down, easing immediate pressures. But you said this isn't all good news. What's the catch with being below that 2.1 number long term?
Okay, yeah, this is where we need to shift perspective. A fertility rate below replacement level. It doesn't just mean the population might eventually shrink, it fundamentally changes the age structure of the population.
How so?
Well, fewer babies being born today means fast forward 20, 30, 40 years, and you have a much smaller proportion of young, working-age adults compared to older people.
Ah, so the population pyramid starts to flip. Wider at the top, narrower at the bottom.
Exactly, it inverts. Look at the projections. By 2050, India is expected to have something like 300 million people over the age of 60.
300 million.
Yep. That's roughly the entire population of the United States today. Just imagine the scale of supporting that many older citizens.
Wow. That's a huge number for any country to manage.
And the economic math is pretty stark. In a few decades, you'll have proportionally fewer workers. Fewer people paying income tax, fewer people starting businesses, running factories, driving your Ola.
Fewer contributors to the economy.
Right. At the exact same time, you have this massive group of older people needing more pensions, more health care, more social support.
So a smaller group of workers has to support a much larger group of retirees. It's that classic problem.
Yeah.
Too many uncles and aunties needing help, not enough nephews and nieces to foot the bill.
That analogy nails the fiscal challenge. And we've seen this movie before in other countries that got older earlier. Look at Japan.
Right. They've been dealing with this for a while.
Decades. Empty schools in the countryside, shrinking towns, investing heavily in robots just to help care for the elderly because they don't have enough human caregivers. South Korea is even more extreme. The fertility rate is incredibly low, like 0.78 or something.
0.78? That's tiny.
It is. They're trying all sorts of things to encourage births, but it's incredibly hard to turn that ship around once it's moving.
But there's a key difference with India compared to Japan or South Korea, isn't there? They got rich before they got old.
That is the absolute crux of India's unique challenge. Japan, South Korea, most of Europe. They built advanced high-income economies. They had robust social safety nets, sophisticated healthcare before the major aging wave hit.
Where's India?
India is facing this rapid demographic shift while it's still very much a developing middle-income country. If India gets old too quickly before building broad-based wealth and those essential support systems,
It could get stuck.
it risks getting trapped. Becoming, as one analysis put it, a creaky, gray-haired economy that struggles to afford the care and support its large elderly population needs, getting old before getting rich.
That distinction is crucial. It's not just about aging, it's about your economic stage when you age. But wait, India does have something those other countries mostly lack now, right? An advantage.
It does, and this brings us back to the opportunity side of the coin, the demographic dividend. India has this unique asset right now, a massive youth population.
Huge numbers of young people.
Over half the population, more than 700 million people, are under 30. That's not just a statistic, it's a potential engine.
The potential powerhouse, yeah.
Exactly. This demographic dividend is the economic boost a country can get when it has a large chunk of people in their prime working years and relatively fewer dependents, meaning kids and elderly. If this huge group of young people is healthy, educated, and working productively,
They could drive massive growth.
they can fuel potentially unprecedented economic growth, innovation, productivity before they themselves become the older, dependent generation. It's like sitting on a potential goldmine for development.
But it sounds like that mine won't be open forever. It's a window.
Definitely a limited time offer. That bulge of working age people is projected to peak and then start shrinking as a share of the population relatively soon. Maybe around 2040, give or take.
So within the next 15, 20 years, that advantage starts to fade.
The clock is ticking.
Right.
There's real urgency to activate this youth bulge now while the window is wide open.
Okay, so the potential is massive, all these young people.
Yeah.
But here's the billion-dollar question. Are they actually equipped to seize this opportunity? Is the system setting them up for success?
And that's the catch. That's the major hurdle to actually cashing in this demographic dividend. The potential is there, yes, but the preparation, it's lagging. Take the education system.
Yeah.
It's a system of stark contrasts. You've got world-famous institutions, the IITs, the IIMs, producing brilliant minds, absolutely top tier.
Sure.
But for the vast majority, The reality is often underfunded schools teaching that focuses heavily on just memorizing for exams.
Rote learning.
Exactly. Not enough focus on critical thinking, problem solving, or the practical skills needed for the modern economy, or even tomorrow's economy.
I've heard about a big skills gap.
It's significant. Look at the numbers. Only about 27% of India's workforce has had any formal skills training. Compare that to China, where it's over 50%.
That's a huge difference.
It translates directly into workforce readiness, and you see the result in youth unemployment figures. They're stubbornly high, around 23% for the 15 to 29 age group.
23%. That's nearly 1 in 4 young people looking for work.
It means millions are either unemployed or, just as worrying, underemployed, stuck in jobs far below their qualifications or potential. You hear these stories, right? The engineering graduate, B.Tech degree, driving an auto rickshaw.
Yeah, that example comes up a lot.
It's often framed as resilience, but fundamentally it points to a systemic failure. It's not usually their first choice. It means the economy isn't generating enough suitable jobs, or the education didn't provide the specific skills employers need. It's a mismatch.
So we're producing graduates, but maybe not with the right skills, or there aren't enough jobs demanding those skills being created fast enough for this huge wave.
That sums it up well. The skills for advanced manufacturing, for tech, green energy, quality services, they're specific. And we have to mention gender here, too.
Right, women in the workforce.
A huge untapped resource. Roughly half the population is female, but only about 19–20% of Indian women are formally employed. That's incredibly low.
Just 19%, wow.
Think of the economic boost if India could bring significantly more women into paid work. Better safety, more flexible options, accessible childcare. These are economic imperatives, not just social nice-to-haves. Ignoring that potential is a massive own goal, strategically speaking.
So you've got this ticking clock on the dividend, a looming aging crisis.
Yeah.
What are the real solutions? I hear politicians sometimes talk about just, encouraging more births.
Yeah, you do hear those ideas pop up sometimes. Maybe cash bonuses for having a third child, tax breaks, state-level freebies. Some leaders have floated these quick fixes.
Do they work?
Honestly, not really based on the evidence so far. And more importantly, they kind of miss the point. It's like trying to fix a leaky roof by just painting over the stain on the ceiling.
Because the reason people have fewer kids isn't just about a small cash payment.
Exactly. Modern couples, especially educated, urban ones, aren't deciding against a third child because they can't afford the diapers. They're making complex, strategic choices based on the real costs, housing, high-quality education, healthcare, the time commitment, plus, anxieties about the future, even climate change.
Trying to manage a toddler during a Zoom meeting.
Right. It's like, as someone joked, herding cats while trying to recite the Ramayana. It's intense. A small cash incentive doesn't really address the core challenges of job security, affordable childcare, or quality schooling.
Okay, so trying to artificially boost birth rates isn't the smart play. What is? What's the real fix here?
The smart long-term strategy is investing heavily in the people you already have. That means urgently fixing education, creating good jobs, and building the support systems needed for both the young and the coming wave of elderly. And this needs to happen yesterday.
Okay, let's break that down. Education first.
It needs a serious overhaul. Move beyond just exam cramming. Focus on critical thinking, creativity, problem-solving skills that actually matter. And vocational training needs a total rebrand.
Make it respectable.
Yes, make it a respected path, not just a plan B. Look at Germany's apprenticeship model, integrating learning and on-the-job training. That's a potential blueprint. And at the basic level, especially in rural areas, get qualified teachers in classrooms, ensure up-to-date books, reliable internet access. The fundamentals need strengthening.
And then jobs. Skills are great, but people need places to use them.
Absolutely critical. Job creation has to significantly outpace GDP growth. Manufacturing holds huge potential, really making India happen on the ground. High tech like semiconductors, green tech, yes, those are important government priorities, but don't forget small businesses.
The backbone of the economy.
They are. We need to slash the red tape that makes it so hard to start and grow a small business. It shouldn't feel like an obstacle course. And specific support for women entrepreneurs, for rural youth microloans, local incubators that can unlock so much potential. Imagine the village coder building the next Zomoto. Make that a common story.
And looking ahead, preparing for the aging population means healthcare.
Non-negotiable. Getting ready for 300 million seniors by 2050 means massive proactive investment now. India's public health spending is low, around 2.1% of GDP. China's closer to 7%. That needs to go up. significantly.
More clinics, more staff.
More clinics, training armies of doctors, nurses, care workers, ensuring access is affordable, especially for the elderly. And mental health support needs to be part of that package, too. Aging isn't just physical.
And finally, those social safety nets you mentioned earlier, pensions.
Essential. You need robust pension and social security systems. Right now, maybe only 12% of the formal workforce has proper pension coverage. That's tiny. If that doesn't expand dramatically, millions of elderly will face poverty. We need to look at models, maybe like in parts of Europe, that provide genuine security in old age and start building that system now.
It sounds like a huge undertaking, touching almost every part of society and the economy.
It absolutely is. And interestingly, there's another dimension here, the environment.
How does the environment connect to having fewer babies?
Well, theoretically, a stable or even slowly declining population could mean less pressure on natural resources. India faces enormous environmental stress. Air pollution in cities is often horrendous.
Like a sci-fi movie, you said.
It can feel that way. Water scarcity is a growing source of conflict. Heavy reliance on coal. Fewer people could mean less demand on forests, rivers, land. Maybe cleaner air eventually.
But that's not automatic, is it? Fewer people don't guarantee a cleaner environment.
Not at all. It's not a magic bullet. It just creates some breathing room. That space has to be actively used to push green policies, serious investment in renewables, fixing waste management, changing consumption patterns. The slight easing of population pressure is an opportunity to tackle existing environmental damage more aggressively, not a solution in itself.
Right. And zooming out, how does India fit into the global picture? Is this fertility drop unique?
Oh, far from it. This is a major global trend. Lots of countries are below replacement level and aging fast. China's rate is super low, around 1.2. Most of Europe is about 1.5. Even the US is around 1.7. No, actually, not 2.5. Aging is happening almost everywhere, just at different speeds and starting points.
So India could potentially learn from what others have tried.
Definitely. There are lots of case studies. China's one-child policy is widely seen as, well, a cautionary tale now created a demographic cliff. But other places, like France, have focused more on supportive policies.
What kinds of policies?
Not just cash for babies, but things like heavily subsidized, high-quality childcare, generous parental leave for both parents, things that make it easier for couples to balance work and family, and for women especially to stay in the workforce.
Makes it more feasible to have kids without sacrificing careers.
Exactly. India can look at all these different approaches, the mistakes and the successes, and kind of cherry-pick what might work in its own context. The focus should clearly be on investing in people and making family life more manageable, not just chasing a birth number.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, it really feels like India is at a critical juncture. This fertility drop is, well, complicated. A success on one hand, but a huge warning sign on the other.
That sums it up perfectly. It's an achievement of past efforts, yes. But it dramatically raises the stakes for the future. You've got this incredible but temporary gift of the youth, bulge the demographic dividend. Unlocking it requires immediate, serious action.
The whole economic future seems to hinge on getting this right.
It really does. If India makes the right investments now, education, jobs, health, social security, and manages this age shift well, it could harness that dividend and truly become a major global player. If it doesn't, if it fumbles the preparation for both the young and the old.
It risks stagnation.
Yeah, it risks getting stuck, becoming less that dynamic young giant and more.
Well, like you said earlier, maybe a bit rickety, like an old auto rickshaw struggling uphill.
It's a massive challenge, clearly. But the solutions, while hard to implement, seem pretty clear. Invest in people.
The path is reasonably clear, yes. Invest in human capital.
Right.
It's incredibly complex, needs sustained political will, huge resources. But, India has pulled off some amazing things before. Think about the space program sending missions to Mars on tiny budgets compared to others.
Right, that ingenuity.
Exactly. So the big question now is, can that same ingenuity, that same focus be applied to this complex domestic challenge? Can India effectively prepare its young people to drive the future while also building a system that supports its elders with dignity? It's a really delicate balancing act and definitely urgent. Something we absolutely need to keep watching. Really makes you think.